Greetings, mortals, and welcome. Please present your tickets for validation. Thank you. Your existence has been acknowledged, and you have been granted access every Thursday and Friday. You will be accompanying your guides, Krista and Brandy, along with a world-renowned guest. They will be exploring an intriguing tendril of what humans refer to as reality each week, as they strive to advance you further down the path to the truths of your physical earth and what lies on the other side. Remember to please keep your hands and feet in the vehicle at all times, and do not exit until the craft has come to a complete stop.
Hey, everybody. Welcome.
Hey, welcome.
Happy.
Hey,
I'm waiting for my internet to go back out. I swear I've had problems all day.
With AT&T?
Yep.
I have AT&T and ours didn't go out. My wife's did, but mine didn't. And then a couple other people in the houses did, and the other people didn't. It's weird. Like, I don't know. It was weird.
Yeah, all three phones on my plan were out.
Huh.
Yeah, until about, 11:30 or so today.
A couple of my friends said, hey, everything's good on my end. And then some of them said, hey, I don't have any service. And they panicked and contacted me through Facebook Messenger. And I was like, are you hurt? And they were like, no. Then I'm like, why are you? No phone. And like,
right.
The great phone outage of 2024. We'll always remember this day, a day that shall live in infamy.
Well, I got to tell you, honestly, it was kind of nice because, like, my phone didn't ring, wasn't beeping, it wasn't.
Lucky you.
Yeah, it was kind of nice.
It would have been my excuse for a lot of things today if I could have gotten away with it.
I hear you. Yeah. So anyway, it's just been one of those days. It's been a hectic day. I know, Brandy, you worked today. Her service must not be very good.
Might not be able to hear you. So speaking of work, I'll say this. My nephew told me something, and this won't take long, but I just wanted to throw it out there. For people who are claiming that they're looking for work and they can't find it, there are jobs everywhere. So this guy, of course, he was a millennial. He said, I can't find work anywhere, and I've been unemployed for 3 months, and I'm about to have a child, and I'm getting, whatever. And I thought that odd because he says, well, I've gone through all these interviews and I've gotten to the final interview multiple times, but I can't land my job. Well, he has a degree, a software degree. He's a developer, whatever. And of course, you're looking for a job in that specific field, which is okay. That's understandable. But in the meantime, you could be working. And for some reason, this lower generations, the newer generations, younger generations, whatever you want to call them, I don't want to be too insulting to them, but they don't look at the world that way.
No,
they look at it as like, I don't have a job in my respective field. I'm not going to work until I find one. Then you're going to go broke and have nothing. And then they don't,
right,
because they don't work. And it's a very simple thing. I mean, I was never without a job for very long. If I didn't have a job, you'd have to keep working in the meantime, and then you could find a better job, but you still have to work.
Right.
These people, they just don't work. They're just like, well, I'm just not going to work till I find a job in my field. Yeah. And the degree nowadays, with these kids coming up, they don't understand. And I don't think the millennial parents that are parenting these Zoomers, they don't understand that a degree is not worth much nowadays. They're still pushing kids, go to college, especially females. Females in college outnumber men. It's like 67 to 33%.
Yeah. Wow.
It's all women they're going into getting a degree. And then they're finding life very difficult because guess what? Everybody else has a degree too, and it's not working.
Exactly.
And then the guys, I wish I could say, that they're all taking trade jobs and keeping the country going blue collar wise, but they don't want to do that either. So a lot of them are smoking pot, playing video games, and unemployed.
Right. No, I get it. My son, he went into the military. He went to do his paramedic thing. He did that. And then he went to college. He can be a teacher or history, whatever. And now you know what he is? He's a plumber.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
True story.
I mean, I was like almost to the end of my junior year, and I got really mad at the dean, and because I argued with my professors because they were wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And not to sound like a dickhead or whatever, but they were lying. I mean, they were just lying. I don't know. This one lady would get up there and supposedly teach history. I'll never forget. And she would get up there and she'd basically lie. Like, I mean, it's one thing to say, but like absolute dates and said on this day, this and this happened. And I was like, there is nothing that supported what she was saying at all.
Yeah.
It was all an agenda. And it was a lie. And I knew history very well going into that class. And so I corrected her. Like, she came out and started saying things about Alexander the Great, which I had studied, intently. And she was like, he's this, that, and this and that. And I was like, when did this happen? And some of the things that she was talking about were from a novel called The Alexander Romance, which people debate about the authenticity of it being a historical book. But even that, she wasn't correct. Like, she was telling the stories that were, and it was like she would take whatever the book said and just make it up in her head, whatever agenda she wanted it to fit. Like, she claimed that Alexander had all these children. And that was the big, she said he had children in every land that he conquered. And I was like, no, he didn't. But then she also said that he was homosexual. And I was like, with Hephaestion, which was never substantiated. And that was actually created by one guy in Rome, ancient Rome, not ancient even. It was in 300 AD. So this guy would have been around 680 years after Alexander died. Wow. And in his writings, because he was a homosexual, he made Alexander homosexual. And I'm not saying anything about homosexual people or one way or the other. All I'm saying is in that she said that, and I was like, that's not substantiated. And then everybody that she would talk about, she would put her own slant on it. Like Joan of Arc, she was a lesbian who was fighting for women's rights. I'm like, what? That's what she claimed. Like, she claimed all these, crazy things. And then she started talking about all. And so I challenged it. So I asked if I told the dean, I said, can I get out of this class because she's a liar? And he's like, no, you got to, it's either that you forfeit the credit, whatever. And so we got into it, and I was like, no, I'm done. And so whether it was right, wrong, or indifferent, I dropped out and I went and became successful.
There you go. I wholeheartedly agree with you. I've got a 13-year-old girl who wants to do construction. I'm like, okay, whatever you want to do.
There's a lot of money in that.
Yep.
Our client, my contact at one of our biggest client, she's a female.
Yeah.
She's a married female, and she is in charge of like multiple multi-million-dollar projects, and she's in charge of multiple of them. Like the superintendents, she would be their boss's boss. So,
right. Yeah, my husband does construction, and she's went to work with him. And honestly, my 13-year-old, she can swing a hammer just like, any other person can. So
a lot of money in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Anthony, can you get me a drink? 1877, please.
Yeah, they're the new norm. I agree with you though on the college thing for sure. Most definitely. Well, I'm excited about this show. With Lyle, he's a wealth of information with just like I named the show, Bigfoot in America.
Right.
Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and bring Lyle up.
All right.
Hey there.
Hi. Hey, Lyle.
Appreciate it.
How are y'all doing?
We're good. We appreciate you coming on and doing this tonight with us.
Absolutely. I was literally just talking to my girlfriend, and I'm wearing my
paranormal round.
Awesome.
I said, Josh. I tried to describe Josh in a nutshell, which is difficult. I said, this is one of the smartest guys I've ever known. And we're on here, and right off the bat, he's talking about Alexander the Great and such, and case in point. So
right.
I was just explaining why I didn't finish college.
Right.
But you did. You have, Lyle has an English degree.
That is
Lyle
true.
is a very literate person. When we were driving back from the first conference, and I've talked about this on my show, Lyle was telling me a lot about himself. And it was one of the few times where I was quiet for a few hours. It's very, very rare. And Lyle was talking. I just let him have the floor because he had a lot to say. And he was telling me about his career and how it, everything in the band and like how he got into writing these books and being involved in the cryptid community and just everything.
Yeah.
It was
So yeah, I'm somewhere between. I do have a degree in English, but I'm not an English teacher. I did end up writing books, but I never really took creative writing classes. All mine was literature and all that stuff, which, you write essays and papers, but it certainly wasn't along the lines of the kind of journalism type stuff that basically is what investigative journalism type writing. So it gave me a springboard, but I'm somewhere in between somebody who used their degree and somebody who didn't. Of course, I pursued music and I did that for many years and still do, and that was successful as well. But I loved writing, and it comes naturally, and I love cryptids and strange but true stories, and I've merged the two.
How did you get into the monsters, for people that don't know?
Well, it was something definitely that, from as far back as I can remember, I remember seeing horror movies, monster movies, and I loved it, vampires and werewolves. And in third grade, we were able to order these Scholastic books, and they had one called Strange But True. And I ordered that, and it had, a mix of kind of Ripley's Believe It or Not type things and some paranormal, but it had chapters on Bigfoot, Yeti, and the Loch Ness Monster. And that was on the cover, and I'm reading that going, whoa, this is like people see these things in real life, like quote unquote monsters. So that really got me intrigued and alerted me to Bigfoot and things. And then I saw, when I was young, I saw the movie The Legend of Boggy Creek, which dramatized sightings of a Bigfoot-like creature in southern Arkansas, which was about 3 hours from where I live in North Texas. So then, of course, like, whoa, this is, was a very scary type docudrama horror film. So I'm like, not only are these things sort of in my own backyard, but they're scary. And that kind of merged all the things that I loved. And of course, years later, no one had ever written a book about The Legend of Boggy Creek. It had been this blockbuster film, independent film in the 70s, and almost every Bigfoot researcher of a certain age will cite that as one of the major influences, if not the influence, along with the Patterson film. And so, I'm like, I love The Legend of Boggy Creek. I live near there, and nobody's written a comprehensive book about the history of the sightings of the creature, which were based on true accounts, as well as how this movie was even made and all the things that have come after. So I picked that and wrote my Beast of Boggy Creek book, which was published in 2012. And that really set me on this path. Suddenly I was getting calls from Monsters and Mysteries in America or whomever was covering that subject. Like, okay, this works pretty well. I wrote a book, people are buying it, and I'm on TV and getting to talk about it. So it was like,
what could be better? How much time did you spend down there at Boggy Creek?
He moved in.
That's
what I'm thinking.
I think I know as many people there as I know in my own hometown, if not more. I researched a solid maybe 2 years in research and writing of that book, because it was very involved. It was not just the witnesses, and in some case talking to descendants if they had passed on, but the newspapers carried this, so I had to track down all these newspaper accounts from the early 70s, and the movie aspect was another big involved thing. So with a lot of research in various things to kind of pull all of it together to build the complete story. And then when I first started researching, I thought, well, this is sort of, I'm writing about past events. This happened, and it was in the 70s, and there was sightings before that. Well, then I'm down there, and people are going, no, there's been sightings. They're not publicized like they were.
Right.
So now I'm interviewing witnesses who had sightings in the 80s and 90s and 2000s. So that kind of brought the story in a more, present, current time. So, which worked to an advantage, obviously, to really make full circle on the story. So it took me a good 2 years of researching, going there numerous times. I was up there every month or 2 months writing the manuscript, and then I got a publishing deal from Anomalous Books that had put out several of my favorite strange but true type books. So it was kind of an honor to then be published by them.
Right. Absolutely. And you're also, so the last Dogman conference that we came to, we stopped the night before and met up with William Lunsford, Keith Crabtree, and Will took us around, and that was pretty interesting. I mean, the only weird thing we did hear out there was along the Sulphur Creek or whatever that is, and we did hear a growl, but it could have been a native animal too, but it's definitely an area that I want to go back to.
It's a great area because it is definitely like, it's in proximity to the metropolitan area of Texarkana, but when 15 minutes from there, you are in a very swampy hardwood habitat, which is still in many places as it was in the 70s, because a lot of that in the Sulphur River bottoms and along the river and where Boggy Creek, some of that just can't be developed, and it's been preserved by the wildlife management organization. So it's a really, really great place. And guys like William Lunsford, who lives in that vicinity, he's also been in every nook and cranny of those woods. Yep. Sometimes sometimes it's a hit, sometimes a miss, but there's always interesting things. I mean, I've run up, nearly stepped on alligators, and I've seen all manner of wild hogs and all sorts of dangerous creatures up and above the possibility of the power monsters. So.
Right. Most definitely. That's when I watched the movie when I was young, and it was like between that and The Exorcist, I think those were the two big horror flicks of the time, and both of them scared me dearly. And I rewatched that movie not that long ago, and it still like kind of freaks me out,
It was very effective. I mean, over the last 12 years, or maybe 12 years since the book came out, so many people have come up and said, "Oh man, I saw The Legend of Boggy Creek when I was a kid," and every single one says it scared something out of me, that it almost like they're quoting, and everyone just was scared by that movie. It was really effective at the time. It was the authentic people. It showed the bottoms and the way that kind of Keith was in this costume and played Bigfoot in many of the scenes, and it was just there, but not in your face. So it was creepy and very effective.
Yeah. And he's a perfect person to play it because he's a big guy.
Right. He was literally like the biggest, tallest guy around. So naturally, I think he was around 18 at the time. They had him playing the part, which wasn't easy to wear a furry costume in the bottoms down there. It's hot, and I don't think they were getting paid much, if anything. No one knew this was going to become a giant, $1 million making movie. It's just sort of a, hey, we're making this movie type thing. So it was interesting process. Yeah,
quite a film for its day. Josh, what do you think of that movie?
I thought it was terrible. It sucked. I walked out. I was a little bitty kid. I watched it on VHS when I was a kid, and we lived out in the middle of nowhere when I watched it, and it did scare me.
Yeah.
And in fact, we didn't finish it. And I remember this specifically because my older sister was like, I don't want to watch this. And I knew why, because I had two sisters. One of them really liked horror. The other one pretended to. And it scared her. And we lived at, that was one of the houses we lived in that had some weird stuff. Not to go off track here, but that house had like, I lived in two in particular when I was a kid, houses that I know were haunted, but that one, it was pretty bad. And it was out in the middle of nowhere. And it really messed with the females. Like I didn't bear the brunt of that one. It was like after my sisters, my mom, my aunt. And I just remember like being on the floor playing with my He-Man, you know, and I see like the shadow come behind me. So there was another movie that scared me as a kid living in that house. And it was I think it was an ABC special movie called The Midnight Hour or something like that. And I just remembered watching that movie, and it was all these zombies, but then there was like this one hairy looking Bigfoot type creature that was running around with them. And I don't know why they threw him in there, but it was there and it scared the crap out of me. And it was at that house. And I specifically remember watching that Beast of Boggy Creek. We rented it from the Brookshire Brothers right there. Yeah. And on the cover, it had that weird looking, you know, Bigfoot, you know, sideways, whatever. It was creepy. It was a scary thing, you know? Yeah,
for sure. I had saw that movie, and then Missouri always has a state fair. I'm sure every state does. And I was probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old. And at the state fair was Bigfoot. You know, there was a man, I'm sure, dressed up as a Bigfoot, you know, but that was when all that was going on. And I was scared to death. And I remember we camped with my mom and my dad, and I was scared to death all night long because I thought that Bigfoot was going to get out, and because of that movie. So that movie, you know, as a kid, it is a scary movie, especially the bathroom scene.
I'm gonna say something here for Lyle, because Lyle's like me. He doesn't accept it as like an encounter unless it's like, you know, like right there, like what happened with me with the dog man. Pretty sure I've been in close proximity to Bigfoot multiple times, but I remember one time with my wife, she saw it like straight up. I saw it from the side, and it was like a reddish brown color. And me and Lyle talked about that one night, and or one day we were driving, and that was, I'm trying to remember. We were driving by that area of Falk. We were going through Texarkana. Remember, Lyle? Yep. And and that day you were telling me about, we started talking about The Town That Dreaded Sundown, which was the movie based on the Phantom Killer who was never caught, which is odd because, you know, somebody who's serial killing, they don't stop. So he moved on to greener pastures or he died. Something happened. He went to jail for something else, but it was never solved. And so Lyle knows all about that. He was telling me about it. And then you told me that you did see something one time in the woods of Falk. Can you tell us that?
Yes. So, you know, I've been up there in those woods numerous times, and, you know, things have happened with vocalizations and other things that you couldn't definitively say. I mean, we felt like they ruled out other things. We felt like that this was the creature, but just the most strangest way to have an encounter. I was there in May of 2021, and I was up there I go up there often, but in this case, there was a woman who had recorded some intriguing audio, some howls near her property, which is in an area kind of south of Falk, which I think is nowadays the most, the hot spot. And so, you know, we're going to go, you know, drop by the Monster Mart and do all that stuff. And I was in process of going down there to interview this lady. And on the way, we stopped at this Mercer Bayou boat ramp. And it's a place where we've camped many times. It's sort of off the main path in a way. It's not a public campground or anything. And I was there with my friend Jerry Hestan and my girlfriend at the time, and Jerry had been in the Monster Quest episodes called Swamp Stalker, which they filmed right there. And we were looking at these two cypress trees that you can see that are like landmarks, and we were just kind of looking at how they were looking these days, and they're still there. And I was looking at something caught my eye, like perhaps something moving, and I'm standing literally at the edge of the water, and the bayou in this case is there's a channel of water. I mean, it's a lot of overflow, but bayous have various water paths. This has a channel that's fairly deep and dark, and there's a lot of alligators in there, and then the cypress trees are on the other side. So I see this movement, and I kind of focus in and think, was that the leaves moving slightly in the breeze, or did I see something, walking or moving over there? And I looked again, and then suddenly I see this large something. It's reddish in color, and it's very big, and it moves between the opening of these trees and just moves right across there, kind of diagonally off into the woods. I didn't see it for very long, and it was, I can't say that I saw a lot of definition, but whatever it was big, and it was moving, propelled by walking, there's no, it wasn't somebody on a four-wheeler or anything else. I see this thing, and of course, I'm the only one that sees it. Jerry's looking the other way. My girlfriend's not looking. I'm like, oh my God, did you just see this? No one saw it. Well, at the time, we didn't have a boat because we're en route to go interview this lady. We're not there to boat in the bayou. We didn't have a boat, and you can't really go across there. I mean, I'm not kidding. There's like 12-foot alligators in there, and I'm not walking there. So we couldn't really follow up, but it is a place that it's not a property that's owned by anyone. I've been going there for 13 some odd years. I've never seen a single person on that side over there. You can't get there. I mean, you would have to have a boat, and there's no body parked, and no, it wasn't a four-wheeler or anything motorized. Whatever it was walking and moving. And here's the kicker. It's like, well, God, it's like reddish in color. And, it's like you get a lot of descriptions of the creature being brownish and, the typical almost ubiquitous Bigfoot description. But we had literally been at the Monster Mart not 15 minutes earlier. A local said, I swear I saw that thing run across the road in midday down on this other bayou on this road where there had been several previous encounters, some of the most classic Boggy Creek encounters. He said to me, I don't know, it looked kind of like an orangutan. It was reddish. I don't know. He said it was very ape-like, and it, not an orangutan, but it ran across. Not 15, 20 minutes later, that's the exact color I see moving through the woods. So that was my encounter. And we went back later, some months later, and we had a boat. We went across there, and we sort of did the estimation as to how far it was, how big it was, and that kind of scenario to estimate where this thing was standing. And it pretty much all added up to the possibility, of which I can't say 100%, but I believe that was the creature or one of the creatures.
Wow. That's interesting. Go ahead, Brandy.
I was just going to say that's really cool, though, that you're getting validation with somebody else saying, hey, I just saw something just like that. Especially at Monster Mart. If you've never been to Monster Mart, it's a cool place.
Yeah,
that's what I keep hearing. I keep hearing about it, but it's like, you got to go check it out.
You never know what you're going to hear. And it really did kind of help me validate it, because now it's not the first time I've heard somebody describe it as orangutan-like or being reddish, brownish red, orangish brown red, those kind of colors. I have heard that before, but it was very supported. Seemed to support what I saw, because this guy's encounter had been within, I think it was 3 weeks from mine. So, and where he saw it is, it's not too awfully far from the position I was in. So that was interesting.
So
I may have, I'm sorry. I may have missed it. I may have missed it. But what time of year was this when you had that encounter?
It was late spring. It was in May, which is
Because I was just wondering if that hair color could have been like sun bleached or something like that, possibly.
right. I mean, from what I've logged a lot of encounters dating back to early 1900s, even, and I've noticed, people kind of. The movie Legend of Boggy Creek often plays up that it's a singular creature, and the pathos in the movie and the way it paints it as, well, kind of a typical monster movie where it's a tragic figure and it's a lonely, and now we've shot at it and now it's lashing out. It worked for the movie that it needed to be that one creature. But in truth, people have seen various creatures described at various heights, various colors, and certainly you couldn't see a creature down there for more than 100 years if it wasn't a population of some sort. So I feel like that just like humans, they don't all have the same shade of hair. It's the only way to explain it, because you get black, dark brown, reddish,
even white.
And yes, some of the famous, Lake Worth monster and other ones people describe as white, hairy Bigfoot thing. So yeah, I think that there's just multiple colors, and they're not changing colors. They may over time get from dark to gray, or white, just like a human. If it's an older one, it could be very well be gray.
Right.
But I interviewed a woman who had a sighting just north of the Sulphur River, but up just into the Texas side, because right there is the border of Texas. This is one of the best witnesses I've ever interviewed. This woman, and I was lucky to get her name because she went into a convenience store after the sighting, freaked out, and I happened to know this person who worked there by just total luck. But the woman, this was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving in 2014, 10:30 a.m. in the morning. She lives right on the Sulphur River, and it's a county road. It's very wooded. She was going to see her mother in the hospital, and she was driving out, and she got a little ways and remembered she had forgotten to bring some clothes for her mom. So she stopped and started turning around, and when she did, there right in the middle of the road was this hairy creature standing there, an upright thing. And she said, my first inclination was it's somebody in a costume, but she can clearly see it. And there's a very heavy, thick woods on one side, and there's kind of a field right on the other side of this road, and it was headed towards the field. And she said, as I stood there and the thing was looking at me, she said, I could see it was some sort of an animal. I could see the way the hair was, and not a costume. She said it was perhaps only 5 feet tall. And she said it was there for seconds and just looked at her. And she said that thing turned and ran back into the woods faster than she's ever seen anything move. And it was gone. She was very shaken up, and then went home, got the clothes, went to this convenience store, and by luck, somebody had told me later that this woman had a sighting, and I interviewed her, and this woman did not want to have seen Bigfoot. She didn't have Bigfoot on her mind. She was just kind of a neutral position, clear daylight. And I could just see she was just freaked out by the whole thing.
Sure.
And so I know the area well, but her thing was, well, if this was a Bigfoot, I heard Bigfoot was really big. And I said, well, ma'am, if these, I don't know, I can't explain what they exactly are, but if there are any sort of biological things or any kind of, they don't just come out 7 feet tall. They grow up, and there's families. And then I realized I don't think I'm helping this lady, because now I'm telling her there's more in the woods than one,
right?
And not just the baby. So, but if you're going to make up a Bigfoot encounter, you're going to say, man, it was this big giant.
Right.
You just described what she saw, and I felt that was very credible. And
absolutely,
that sighting. I'm jealous of that sighting.
Yeah. especially because she had nothing to gain. That's the thing about people who come out. They have absolutely nothing to gain, but everything to lose,
Yeah. And like Lyle said,
she didn't want publicity. She didn't really want me to use her name and things like that.
Right.
And she was not looking for attention.
what you said, Lyle, about them being small and different sizes, that's definitely the case, because we get reports of all different shapes, sizes, color.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the body types are different, everything. Somebody today on Facebook was actually Jill Rimenschneider from what's it called? A Flash of Beauty. And she had said something about a gugwe. What is a gugwe? And some other guy that I know answered the question.
Yeah.
But he didn't answer it completely. And the thing is, it's because none of it is really complete. We don't know.
Right.
Yes, it is a term that was used by the Mi'kmaq, which are also a part of the Algonquin language people. So it comes from there. So people will say, well, if you saw it in Missouri or Arkansas, it's not a gugwe. And I'm like, well, yeah, but it's still the relative term that, just like skinwalker, it could be from the Choctaw. They have their own legends of whatever shape-shifting shaman that can turn into werewolves. Me and David Weatherly is a very close friend of mine and Lyle's, a great author too.
Mm-hmm.
And we've both studied the skinwalker phenomena. I know J.C. Johnson was a good friend of David's, and he's, and when he used the word skinwalker, people were like, oh, it's only Navajo, blah, blah, blah. Well, not necessarily, because the Utes that were their neighbors that lived above them called it skinwalker too, because they knew what the heck that was, the Yindalushi, whatever. And so when you say that term, gugwe, it could mean any type of things, but it just all of that falls under the umbrella. Even Dogman, a lot of times, and Lyle, we've talked about this, people just say Bigfoot, or they'll say chupacabra. And that's supposed to mean every cryptid on Earth,
Right.
Especially the Latinos. They're like, oh, you saw a chupacabra. I'm like, no, I didn't see anything that looked even remotely like a okay, chupacabra. And then that's everything, the entire monster, and then the kukui, el kukui can mean ghost or monster. It can mean anything.
Interesting.
So
Yeah. We talked briefly about Will Lunsford, but he has a picture of something, and Brandy pointed it out first. I guess what your typical picture of a gugwe is. And he showed Brandy and I, when we were down there, where he captured that picture at. But first thing you said, Brandy, was it looks like a gugwe. And it's.
Yeah. I said that looks exactly like a gugwe.
Yeah.
From all the reports and everything that I've heard, there couldn't be a better picture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Have you seen Will's picture, Lyle?
I've seen a lot of Will's pictures, so I can't.
I'll message him and ask him to send it to you, because it's yeah. And you too, Josh. I'll have him send it to you. It's like, wow.
I probably already got it. I got about 33,000 pictures, and I've already explained why I don't post them, because even though they're compelling, I got one today that looked like a face and an orb, and it was like that. If I post that on the Paranormal Roundtable group, 10,000 people are going to explode.
Oh, yeah.
That's not real. That's fake. It's II, blah, blah, blah. Even the guy that sent it. Yeah, it's fake. Oh, wait, I sent it. Sorry. It doesn't matter. They're going to argue, They'll be mad. I mean, I've seen people say and do some really weird stuff. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I just put pictures out and say, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't even do that. You become the culprit.
I just say that, yes, that could very well be whatever cryptid, a Bigfoot, Gugwe, Dogman, whatever. It could very well be, but it could very well not be. And there's no way to tell. It's literally just
true
conjecture and speculation that people have feelings about. But, in a world where we're trying to get at least better evidence, I would say, or elevate, it just tends to create derision because people have opinions, and there's nothing in that picture that will ever get us closer. It needs to be a better picture, but now we've got AI entering the scene, which is confusing it even further.
Right.
I mean, it's harder.
Yeah.
AI is definitely messing up everything. It's just messing up the
authors, pictures, everybody, and it's crept into my field too. There's one guy y'all know, but he uses AI stories for everything, and some of the stories you'll see them and they'll be like almost the same back to back, and you're like, wait a minute, did you mess up here? Because you at least change the names. You know, that's you can tell. I mean, and people are like, well, these are awesome stories. It's like probably took him 5 minutes to write it. And you can write a book in 5 minutes too, which is a bunch of bull crap.
Yeah, that just irks me, of course, you know, as an author, and I know many of my artist friends, but I've already seen clearly AI pictures on some of these Bigfoot pages, which I don't really comment. People arguing that this is a valid picture. I'm like, oh my God, it's so. I've already seen it. It's AI. Stake my life on it, and we're arguing over it. It's like,
and it's easier now. I mean, used to you had, you know, I won't even say his last name, MP. That's his initials, but he put a gorilla mask on a fence, you know, on a towel rack. And
I remember that.
And there was this huge uproar, and me and Barton were there, and I think Ken was too. And we were like, why did he take a picture of a towel rack?
Right.
I mean, that nobody asked that question. They're like, oh, you just don't want to believe. No, I don't want to believe in that. Because if you're sitting in a hot tub, why would you go, I was going to take a picture of the ether or the towel rack. Hi, that towel rack's pretty. Oh, there happens to be a Bigfoot standing there looking at me. Oh, wow. Okay. But MP has a history of hoaxing. He's been doing that for a long time. And when you call him out, there's always people that are going to believe, though. One of them is a very good friend of mine, bless her heart. But she's like, I believe him. I'm like, okay. Yeah, I saw the Easter Bunny yesterday, too, with Santa Claus. But
you know, and that's what's sad is because the true researchers, you know, like yourself, Lyle, and others out there, you know, it gives everybody a bad name because, you know, the people who are seeking and doing the truth, you know, and then you get these people with the AI, you know, people don't know what's real and what's not, you know, and it's sad.
Yeah.
You know, Brandy and I did an experiment. I guess it's been, about a year ago or something, Brandy. And I went to Kentucky and to visit family, and there was this mill there, and I took some pictures of the creek. Absolutely nothing there in the creek. Absolutely nothing. And I posted it on our Facebook group, Blondes and Booze. And I asked people, what do you see? And honest to God, there was nothing there, but everybody was seeing, you know, different things. And so, you know, after a week or two, you know, I put on there, you know, there was nothing in this picture. This is how your mind, you know, you want to see this creature so bad, or you want to see that creature so bad, you know, you're forming these things in your mind, I think. A lot.
Well, it's human nature. That's how we have survived. Your brain has templates, and it has to make sense of chaos. You know, you're just viewing all this, and our ancestor needed to identify a face in the bushes because that could be dangerous. So your mind is putting this in. This is just biology, human nature, and so we have to really realize that it's not you have to take out the emotion or whatever. It's like that we tend to do that, and it's not like Josh said. It's not that we don't want man. I will hope a picture is we really get a great picture, but I'm also not going to, you know, say that a picture that's ambiguous or just not good enough. I'm going to say that's, you know, I just say it could be, but
that's all you can say because, you know, I mean, and there are, you know, I believe there are true pictures out there that truly are good, but yet, you know, your mind just leads you astray a lot, I believe, you know.
Hard to trust our minds or
people doing the AI, you know, like, I mean, every picture I see that looks good, it's like, oh, well, maybe they use some program, you know.
Well, Lyle actually posted a picture in our group one time that had about 300 red circles on it. I think you were being facetious, but
I'm sure. Yeah.
He even had the air circle. There was some dog man that were parachuting in, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I love to take pictures, especially from some of my, you know, buddies or whatever. You know, you'll obviously they're supposed to figure that you put a red circle on it and send it back. It's like, yeah, I mean, it's fun, and we have to take ourselves a little bit lightly because we are in a field where it's tough and a lot of knowns and unknowns. So And we're looking for what a lot of the public thinks is mythical creatures or whatever. They don't understand it to the level we do and the seriousness. But you have to kind of take it lightly, because at the end of the day, or at the end of 30 years of research, you may or may not have any sort of proof. You don't want to, you make sure you have a good time along the way. And I think people need to enjoy the subject, be serious, and learn things and bring things to the table. But also, is it really worth fighting over and spending 3 hours arguing on Facebook?
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, Ristal says you can tell the AI ones from the real ones. AI doesn't have red circles.
Right.
It's a good one,
No
Ristal.
AI.
That's great. That's a true story, though. Do you believe, like Boggy Creek area, like we mentioned Gugway and things like that? Are you one that is on the fence about dogmen, or have you had encounters with dogmen in that area or anything like that?
I've only interviewed one witness that said the thing she saw, and this was a wildlife photographer who had a sighting in 2016, I believe. It ran across the road at a pretty decent distance in front of her vehicle, and she said it looked like the thing had a snout, or that's the way she described it. Now, back in 2016, Dogman it wasn't like it is now. And I was thinking, well, I've never gotten a Dogman sort of report, and I never even associated Dogman with Falk, because no one I had interviewed had ever said they'd seen a Dogman. Now, when she told me that, I thought, well, could the creature have had something in its mouth, like a squirrel or something? Because she didn't see it that long. But as it went on, I thought, and then Dogman became more of a topic. Well, what if it was a Dogman? So that's the only, and she's a solid witness, so she saw something.
Right.
And so, I'm hung jury on whether there's those kind of creatures there or not. It's just, I haven't received a lot of reports, and I've interviewed hundreds of people, but typically they just describe the Falk monster-esque Bigfoot.
Right.
But who knows? I mean, there's woods, and where there's woods, there's other things. So.
Yeah. Are there a lot of caves in that area, Lyle?
Well, there's really only one. There's one cave down where the Sulphur River runs south of Falk and eventually merges with Red River, some miles south of Falk. There is a cave down there, but that's pretty much the only one. It is there's just not much as far as caves formations in that area.
Gotcha.
Because I would say a lot of times when you get like a whole bunch of sightings of different types of things, there tends to be like a cave system or something, and that could be, because I'm still very convinced that the flesh and blood live within the earth. Like that's why we don't see them all the time, and then they come out and they hang out in the woods, do what they do, and then they go back down inside. And I've thought that for a long time. It doesn't surprise me that there was a Dogman sighting in the same area as Bigfoot. A lot of times, though, they kind of separate themselves. Like even in the LBL, you have one in the north end, one in the south. David Weatherly and I have noticed the same pattern down here in Devil's Backbone. Bigfoot kind of off to the east and Dogman's kind of to the west, but the middle territory, they kind of overlap. And you'll get reports of them, It gets really weird, though, because, I was talking with our colleague Ken Gerhard the other day, and we were talking about the reports of the Bear Man, which is something that me and David have also been looking into, along with Eric Palacios from Media Palace, the whole, Bear Man phenomena, whatever. And in fact, our song, The Bear King, comes out tomorrow. I wasn't trying to plug it, but it's going to be out on Paranormal Soundtable. My wife wrote it, did the music, and she wrote it and did all that, and then we had somebody sing it. But really, really good stuff. But that legend of the Bear Man, that the people have described like the bear man sightings, like in between like Marble Falls and Dripping Springs. And a lady just last, I think it was the day of your show, so it would have been last Thursday. She got in touch with me, and she had been messaging me, and it wasn't. I don't have a lot of time, so I have to pick, and so she just said Bigfoot sighting. She didn't give anything else on the email, so I kind of passed it over and put it into the Bigfoot, file, which is like, and then I thought, it's probably somebody saw one on the side of the road or something, because it was just, asking her to say, hey, I PM'd you on Facebook. But when I went to Facebook, because for some people it's easier just to use Facebook to type out whatever. So I read it, and when she was describing the Bigfoot, I thought to myself, that's not a Bigfoot. That's not a dog man. That's not a gugwe. It is one of these things that we're getting reports of, and David recently fielded one on the other side of Blanco. And it's this bear-like creature. And there is a legend in Marble Falls. It's called the Bear King. And it's very weird. They've found like runes inside of a cave right outside it. Well, in between there and another town, Bertram, that were carved into the wall that were like Viking runes. And so it's weird. Like some of the people in that area's names too, they are a Viking descended, like Scandinavian descended people. So that was what gave me the idea for the Bear King song, But the reports though, sometimes people, like what you were saying, Lyle, like this lady, she saw it really quickly and you had to cover all the bases. Could it have been something that, because 100 reports in that area of Falcon, not one dogman sighting, and then all of a sudden a woman sees a dogman or describes something that looks like a dogman or a werewolf looking creature. Same thing with the Bear King. This lady said that whatever it was, she saw a Bigfoot, and but the description absolutely was this bear-like creature. So then I explained to her, I said, there's a precedent for what you're saying. There's a lot of people who over the years have claimed to have seen this bear-like entity with human-like arm. It looks like a man, but it was bear-like, not really so much wolf-like, and the ears are kind of rounded. Jenna Perry, who was on my show, she talked about it. Guadalupe, forgot her last name. Her report came out of Dripping Springs. When you look at these witnesses' reports, those people were very adamant that they saw something bear-like, even though it may have looked werewolfish, it was bear-like. But at first glance, like when somebody drives by and they see something, like it's kind of weird. You don't really know. Like there was a story in the first book of Linda Godfrey's books, the mini book she wrote, The Beast of Bray Road. And everybody saw a dogman creature, a werewolf-like creature, except one couple. And that one couple was very adamant that what they saw was flat-faced, straight-legged, very Bigfoot and Sasquatch-esque looking creature that ran across the road and then jumped over. And then oddly enough, Doug Hychak, I love Doug, he's a great guy, but Monster Quest, he when they did the reenactment, and I kind of teased him about it one day on the phone. I said, well, you made the Sasquatch into a werewolf. And Linda was very honest about it. She's like, that's not what happened. It was cool and it looked cool, but that's not really what it was. And so they made it look, werewolf-like, but it was actually a Bigfoot, so 100, different reports. And then you get one dog man, and same thing and up there in what's it called? But I think now we're starting to get a few reports here and there of Bigfoot that have been kind of pushed aside or punched aside because everybody was seeing the dog man. But there are Bigfoot reports up there, in the same area. But at first glance, anybody can be like, well, they're expecting to see something, and then they see, and so they make it whatever it is. But some of these people, it sounds like they're not expecting this at all, and boom, it happens. And so their brain just creates whatever they think it is. And a lot of times that's just a Bigfoot,
Yeah, it's your perception, and culture and everything else plays a part in how you identify something. You could show two different people the same thing, and one guy has a different cultural background his grandmother told him there's werewolves in the woods, and he's a lot of these sightings are in the dark, they're brief. He sees it and he's like, man, that was a werewolf. Well, this other guy who's a Bigfoot enthusiast who read every Bigfoot book since he was a kid sees that it's a Bigfoot.
Right.
But it depends on how long you see it, what the lighting conditions are, and it's hard to say which one is which. But there's no doubt, like Josh said, you can have a lot of cryptid reports in one area of a certain creature, but occasionally, boom, you'll get one that's a different creature, and that's the nature of how well this works. Is you just when you think you got it narrowed down, here's this anomaly. You know?
Yeah, I get that. Let's talk about Texas. What kind of inhumanoids you guys have over down there?
There ain't nothing down here.
Not a thing, no, not at
Couple
all.
ghosts, armadillo. That's about it. How about you guys? Well, actually, Lyle, I'm proud to say this. Lyle wrote the book about Bigfoot in Texas, right? Bigfoot in Texas, and I was at his house when you got the author's copy. What's it called? The copy.
Oh, well, the first proof. Yeah.
Proof. See, I'm proud to say now, us authors. See. Because my pal Lyle talked me into writing the book. He said, if you're going to quit doing the podcasting, he's like, which I think you're very good at. This is what he told me. He said, if you're going to quit doing the podcasting, you better be ready to be a good author, because if you suck, I'm not going to be your friend anymore. And I'm going to publicly denounce you as a weirdo. I'll be like, I don't know that guy. I went to his conference. I was a horrible mess. No, he didn't say that. No, he encouraged me. He said, if you can write as good as you talk, you'll be fine. And he told me to write, and basically do what I believed in, and what I thought about Lyle. With you opening up and telling me everything, I didn't know that you were an English major, and and you have a very successful band. I like your music. Heck, Ghoul Town, Drink with the Living Dead. 22 million downloads on that song, man. But we all know it was just Lyle sitting there all day, just day in and day out till he finally got it done. No, but when you wrote that book and the proof came in, I was right there on the island with Ken and you and me, and we were all sitting there, and the book came in, and my wife was there, and it was cool. It was cool to be able to see before everybody else. I got to see it. And so the book is just like all your other books, very well written. You write very well. Probably in this field, I would say you and Barton Nunnelly, two of my favorites, and of course Ken, but you guys, David Weatherly, I think that book right there, though, like you said, and it's a funny thing, Lyle told me, he says, I had to write this before someone else from Texas wrote it, like Ken, because he knows that there's friendly competition there, because the books that you've pumped out, I've read all of them. I think I've only not read two. There's two of them that I haven't, because one of them I didn't finish. And your book, I think it talks a lot about the sightings here in Texas as being, I don't know, like, how do you say it? Like, if I was going to write a book about Bigfoot in Texas, that's what I would write. Just put it that way.
Right.
Put it in a nutshell.
There's just such a long history, and in Texas, when you think of Texas, Bigfoot is not what most people would ever think of. And so, as somebody who's lived here and had an interest all their life, and slowly either come across, read about, fielded reports, there's just such a wide variety in the big state across various landscapes and geographical ecologies, because people think, well, Texas, isn't that like John Wayne cowboy landscape?
Right.
We have that. We also have arid desert-like conditions in the west near El Paso. But you talk about the eastern third of the state, it is heavily forested. It is called the piney woods, and of course our neighbor is Louisiana, so we merge into swampy areas. So there is just such a long history of encounters. I tried to, in the book, kind of goes by regions. I had to break it up. How do I break this up? So it sort of goes by regions and talks about the encounters. And I tried to present the best of and a variety of encounters that had occurred in that area that added to the history, and the credible ones or ones I've interviewed. But there was no way I could include them all, because there's just so many. I mean, and many of these were carried in newspapers from the 1960s and 70s and on. and other researchers who have been in this field, the Texas Bigfoot Research Conservancy guys, people have just really compiled all this together. So I tried to do justice to everybody's research and to the historical accounts, not just talking about my experience or something, but to paint the whole picture of, everything's bigger in Texas, and we got Bigfoot too,
Yeah. When we were at the last Dogman conference, one of the things we had talked about doing was going to Lake Worth. And we had a good time. We actually never made it there, but that would be on our bucket list to go there, And they say that was more of a, what was it, Brandy? It wasn't necessarily a Bigfoot type creature, more
the original newspaper reports, which came out in July 10th, 1969, was the first report. The first people who were parked near the shores of Lake Worth, which is right outside of Fort Worth, back then it was kind of a lover's lane hangout. They describes having an encounter with what they said was a hairy thing with horns and scales. Yeah. So it was kind of a goat man. So a lot of people call it the goat man, but following that, like the next day, there was like 30 people down there that saw this hairy thing on two legs run up on this ridge and push a tire off there. This was seen by literally 30 people, if not more. And that's very rare for a cryptid sighting.
Yeah.
And in subsequent sightings, and including a photo taken on November 19th, 1969, by a guy driving by who managed to snap something on a Polaroid, it's described a lot like a white Bigfoot, for lack of a better term. The horns and all that. But the interesting thing about the Lake Worth monster, and there was a book written about it by a woman named Sally Ann Clark, which came out in 1969. And that's one reason it's well known, is because somebody outside of the newspaper articles, you also have a book. But I recently got in touch with the son of the guy who had the encounter on July 10th. It was in the Fort Worth Star Telegram. I had never interviewed he has passed away, the original witness, but his son said, I recall vividly my father talked about this a lot. Wow. And or at least to the family. I mean, he's very protective because people made fun, but he said the situation was they were parked there. They had a convertible. His mother, which was the guy's wife at the time, was in the vehicle, and he was down by the water. And all of a sudden she starts screaming, and he turns around, and there's this white hairy thing trying to get into the car. He runs up there and literally fights with or tussles with this thing that he described as having horns, and it was hairy and it was upright, and he didn't know what the heck it was. He jumped in the car, and then they drove off, and they went to a cafe and called the police, who came down there. So that's kind of where it all started. But yeah, it does kind of straddle the line between what we would consider a goat man type story or tale or cryptid and a whitish Bigfoot.
Yeah. You guys have some creepy creatures down there too. For sure.
Of course, we got Chupacabra, numerous dogman sightings, the Bigfoot, goat man. There's some stranger ones. The Otine swamp monster. There's this little isolated swampy area in Palmetto State Park, which is south central, not far from where Josh lives in Austin. It's a very small area, but over the years, people have reported this almost like, I think of it as like the Predator. You know how the Predator blends in? It's like a smaller Bigfoot that can blend, very much more paranormal. So we have that. I mean, and a number of other. Yeah. We don't have lake monsters because there's only one natural lake in Texas, and we're not like the north. You got a lot of lake monsters and all the northern Great Lakes.
Caddo Lake is the only one.
And we have a giant catfish though. White Rock Lake near Dallas is a tailbait, enormous giant catfish.
Don't we have Bosco too? The giant turtle, or is that Bosco, or is that
Beast of Busco.
yeah? But oh no, that's not us. We have San Gabriel River. His name is Oscar, and supposedly a bunch of people have seen it, and it's supposedly like 15 feet around or something. I don't know. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wow.
yeah, we have a good
I was just wondering. I was just sitting here going, "What? No jackalope? You don't have any?"
Yeah, the
jackalope
is the yeah.
There you
used to
see
get those,
those. Yeah, we have jackalope restaurants. We have, you can buy this stuff jackalopes at the store, and it's funny because there's those toys that come in those tubes. There's a cryptozoology tube. You know what I'm talking about? They have marine animals.
Yep.
This tube, my daughter had it, and it's like there's a Bigfoot, a Yeti, Loch Ness monster, and a jackalope. I'm like, the jackalope is not.
They just picked that out there.
There's a fur-bearing trout. I'm like, oh my god,
Right. That's too funny. That's too funny.
Here in Austin, right, or in Cedar Park, I should say, next door to Austin, the Beast of Brushy Creek. I mean, there's a documentary out by Eric Palacios. There's actually several people who've seen this thing, and I had a report, and I did it on the show. I covered it. Of a kid that was riding his bike to school, and it's right there by Brushy Creek. And most of the reports of the Brushy Creek beast, including the ones that Eric checked out, were of some type of, ape-like creature.
Mm-hmm.
But this kid saw something that was distinctly, which would be, I immediately knew what that was, and it was to a T, a dogman type creature.
Mm-hmm.
And so it scared the crap out of him. He was a 14-year-old kid. He's not a kid anymore, but when it happened, he's like in his early 20s now, but it started because his roommate who listens to the show, and he's like, because of he got his cousin on. He said, I'm your cousin, to tell his story, whatever. And then that guy says, hey, my friend saw something too. But I thought it was interesting because it was just like little spattering of reports right there by the toll road on 45, I guess it is. And right there in that area, there was like 3 or 4 dogman reports. And then further out to the west, and then a bunch of them right there to the east of that were these Bigfoot type reports that are on the Beast of Brushy Creek. That's the whole. Oh, yeah. And Ristal just says, aren't the Brushy Creek sightings mainly on a road called Harryman Road? No, not necessarily. Harryman Road, that's a whole that is Round Rock, and yes, there have been sightings there, but not.
And I covered that in my Texas Bigfoot book. That
I was going to say, in your book,
different than Brushy Creek.
Yeah, it's different than Brushy Creek, but they're close. They're close, and I know my friend, and of course, you guys probably met him, Krista and Brandy, and I know you know him very well, Lyle Starscream, who does the security for all the conferences. But he had an encounter with something. I don't know what it was, but he used to go exploring in that area over there. And when Eric Palacios and me were talking about it one day, and it's the same thing that Scream saw. It was like this, I don't know. It was like underground tunnel, but it was like these old bars that looked like they were ancient. Like they were, and for whatever, it wasn't to keep people out. It was to keep something in, which was weird. It was built the other way, the opposite way. And I thought it was odd, but Eric talks about that to me on the show. We talked about it, but that's the same thing that Scream saw when he was running around, and that's toward the end of Harryman Road. But that whole area, and if you look at Highway 29, that's like a smorgasbord of like different types of cryptids. I mean, like we've got the guy that was called Fight for Your Life. He told us the story of his ex-military vet. He was homeless, and he was a prowler, which, back then, that was a real thing. People just can't really prowl around the country anymore because there's no more country. But he was up there in a tree, and these dogman type creatures messed with him or attacked him, I guess. And then there was another one where a guy was chased by a Bigfoot, definitely Squatch-like, closer to the end of Leander side. And it's a road that runs between Georgetown and Leander. Now, I always mention that Interspace Caverns is right there. So when you have like underground, that's where I think they're coming from. I mean, that's just my opinion, but I don't know. When you were at the Dogman conference, Lyle, the first Dogman conference, we had asked me and Ken had said, hey, do you want to do this? And at first you said no. You're like, what am I going to talk about? I don't do Dogman, you know? And then we were like, but we want you to talk about what you normally talk about, which is Bigfoot. And so the conference had like a few different subjects. And then this last conference, yes, it was a Dogman conference, and that was the prevailing theme, but there was a lot of different researchers from a lot of different fields. And I would say it was more of a paranormal roundtable conference, really. And we even did a UAP panel. But and I'll start with you, Lyle, you're the guest. What were your thoughts on going into the second Dogman conference as opposed to the first one? The first one was probably like, you were like, hey, this isn't really my wheelhouse, but you enjoyed it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I didn't know what to expect. And so, like I said, the first thought was, well, you're looking for 4 or 5 speakers that are, familiar with Dogman, but don't have a book. And there's more experts, if you will. But the way it turned out, it was broader, and there was more speakers, and it was like, no, we're kind of including everything. So the first one, this is one of my favorite conferences, and especially because at a variety of speakers, I learned a whole lot sitting there listening and enjoyed that. Getting to meet some new guys, hear some speakers. So going into the second one, I mean, I was excited because I knew how the first one went, and now we're going to have it in a new area, and new people can come and enjoy it. And some of the people want to travel, and I knew the plan then, and it was more like a paranormal roundtable where, it's the Dogman conference, but it's Dogman and cryptids, and you don't know. You come to that, and you're going to come away with a variety of opinions and presentations and knowledge you may not expect if you're just sort of thinking the one thing. So I enjoyed it. I'm glad you did it. I know it's a big pain to put on these conferences. People think that these things just pop up, but the organizers therein and anybody who's participating, it is a lot of work. So I appreciate that, and the great response, and all the people, including you guys and everybody, the vendors. I mean, I'm sure you both agree that those are just super fun, and it's almost like people there are just, it's not like Facebook. Nobody's arguing. They're just sharing opinions and enjoying it.
Right.
And it's like, hey, this is good times. And not everybody has to agree on what it is. We're just exploring the subject together. And that's the main thing. It's an exploration that we can all enjoy. So.
Yeah, I got to say, unfortunately, I missed the first one. My daughter got married, so I couldn't come, obviously, to that one. But the second one, it was honestly, I went to a lot of conferences. It was one of the best conferences I've ever been to. It was excellent. And I'm not talking about, the fun time we had. That was fun too, but just like the speaker lineup and the presentations with different people, it was phenomenal. It really was.
Absolutely. And that was appropriate because where Josh decided we were going to have it near Fort Worth, I'm like, well, I can do the Lake Worth monster presentation because we're only a few miles from there. So we were able to tie a different cryptid in that was relevant to the location. So,
yeah.
Oh, I know, because we were so excited. We heard the speech and everything, and we thought, okay, hey, we're gonna run over there and check it out. We're gonna run over to Lake Worth. They had it closed by the time we could even get over there. I was so upset, and it didn't matter what night it was. We were so busy, and then it was always closed. I was like, well, forget it. Maybe next time.
That conference was so tiring because it was Friday night, all day Saturday until late night Saturday night, and then Sunday all the way till late night. And then Lyle, you and Chad Lewis and David Weatherly all said the same thing. Y'all had never seen a Sunday do good like that. And
man, I was surprised. I mean, people were there to the end and enjoying it. So you don't often see conferences that can run that long or can maintain that enthusiasm and stamina. But yeah, man, people just are all about it. And I think it's because of the people who are there, like followers of Paranormal Roundtable and people interested in those subjects. Man, they want to make the most of the weekend. So yeah,
Yeah.
But it's like that at all conferences. Like you want to go, I could try to do that too. I'm out, I'm here. I'm going to go try to see this place where there's a famous sighting, or I'm going to go to these woods.
Mhm.
Boy, it's a lot to try to fit in if you don't have extra days. If you come early, you could do it like you guys went to Boggy Creek.
Yeah.
But trying to do it all in one weekend, it's hard.
Yeah, it doesn't work out that well. We'll plan better for this year's conference. We may have to take an extra couple days off because, like I said, I do want to go back to Boggy Creek. I do want to, there's other things we want to do too. So
I'm trying to talk Ken into letting us do it in October. But I don't know what your schedule is in October, Lyle. I know October's a big month for everybody to go and do stuff.
Yeah, I'm booked up all the way till November now. Not one wiggle room currently. I mean,
wow.
I just had a conflict today of two really huge good events same weekend. I'm like, man, I have to choose sometimes. But
Yeah.
So, because I think we were talking about doing it in like August or September, and my situation is this: I don't want to melt in the sun. I just don't want to be in the Texas heat. I mean, it wasn't so bad there at the Fort Worth. We were indoors,
Yeah.
And the whole time I was indoors because I was emceeing, but then it just the heat outside. If you walked outside, you knew you were in Texas.
Yeah,
and so
hundreds easily.
Yeah, it was hot, and I just don't want to. I don't want to do that, man. I'm just that's why I'm about this third one. I don't know what we're gonna do because October would be better. But are you not going to be available in August or September either, Lyle, or what?
Yeah, I'm booked. I am booked. Just maxed out.
Wow.
I'll be gone part of late July all the way into August. I mean, August, there's some holes in August. That's the only month.
Yeah. See, that's what Ken said too. And that's what we were talking about. For me, October is a little bit slower because it's like the beginning of the last quarter of the year. So these businesses, they don't want to spend a bunch of money going into the final quarter. So October, a lot of times things slow down a little bit in my industry. And so I do have time, but then with the show and with everything else, I end up being booked on 1,000 shows. And that's why the year before last I was on air 26 days out of 31. And I was like, no way I can do that again. And so I chose to only do shows that I'm friends with. That's it. I'm not going to do just anybody's show. I get asked a lot, and it's like I'm sure Lyle does too. But I can't do them all. And I just I said, I'm not going to any conference that's not mine, obviously, but to go, like I went to Craig's, and a few others, but if they're not in Texas and close to where I can drive, for a couple of hours or a few hours, maybe, I just can't do it. And so me and Ken were just spitballing, trying to figure out when. And for Ken, it was looking kind of hard. And so I don't know if we don't get the same core guys and gals together, we may have to just figure something else out this year. And I hate to say it, but I don't mind. If we don't do it, I mean, I'm not.
I understand. I mean, November is usually slower. I know that's after the spooky season, but that's always one that.
Yeah.
It's still a nice time. It's fall. People still love. December's not good, but
no.
I find that early or first few weeks in November is still a pretty good time.
Yeah,
November,
that was what I was going to say because. If I was going to talk, and I haven't talked to Ken about this, and if folks were actually talking about this, y'all are hearing this first. But I'm kind of glad you said that because November was actually the date that I was looking at. Because if not October, because another thing too, in October in New Braunfels is going to be rough because they have Oktoberfest, and there's all these people that drink beer all month. I mean, I'm not joking. Like it's like one long beer drinking festival because it's a German town. And they loved, and they have these huge things for like 2 weekends in a row. And I'm thinking, when is that going to be? But like, I was thinking in Texas, now the problem is a lot of people up north and our Yankee friends, they're going to be like, well, it's going to be cold in November. But the first couple weeks here, typically we don't have, it's not too cold. The first cold front will come in about the middle of November. But I was thinking if we try to shoot for the first 2 weeks of November, plus that'll give me a lot more time to get ready and get set up. So we'll throw that by our friend over there in San Antonio. The guy at the zoo. I'm just going to show up at the zoo and do a live with him one day. And just go into the enclosure and be like, hey, what do we got here? A lion? Cool. And then just put him on the spot. We're going to do it in November.
All I have to say. Well, the only thing I have to say is that Krista and I were down there in January, and it was nice.
Yeah, you can. Now, here's the deception on that. Lyle knows this. 1 year, or was it 2 years ago or something, Lyle? You actually came on my show and you just finished using your truck to pull somebody out of a ditch because of the ice. And you just come on my show because I had you and David and Ken on one after the other to see how everybody was doing with the ice storm in Texas. Mm-hmm. And so that's another thing. Like January can be like a dual-edged sword. It can be beautiful. And you can be like, oh, this is like April. And then the next day you're in a deep freezer and it's like 0 degrees. So you don't know what you're going to get in January.
It's tough because then, you run the risk, especially if you want people to travel. So, I mean, because, it's February right now. Today it was I'm in Dallas. He's probably hotter where he is. It was like 80 degrees today. I mean, we're in February. This is winter. 80 degrees.
It was 76 here. So
wow, that's crazy.
Usually it's hotter down here with more humidity too. I noticed that in Fort Worth, that flat plains of white settlement, it's the heat was a little more dry. But then again, I stayed in Vegas too, and people were like, "It's a dry heat." I'm like, "It doesn't matter when it's 126 degrees. It doesn't matter what it is.
Dry, whatever. It's freaking hot."
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, just know, Brandy and I are good for November, so.
and that's a question I got for you, Lyle. I don't think I've ever asked this question. Does the weather affect you when you go out and do the walking around out in the woods and looking for evidence? Does it affect you? Like, what do you do?
I'm good too. I mean, super hot temperatures in the summer, I avoid, especially because in the South, or swampy areas, it's just, bugs and mosquitoes. I've gotten to where I love warm weather, but I've gotten more to where I will go in like January and stuff after hunting season. And, you can pick a weekend that's nice. And my camping limit is like, I try to stay, don't go below 40 degrees. Low 40s is rough, sometimes rough, but I mean, I have coveralls or whatever, but you don't have any bugs. And I've just kind of gotten to where ticks, chiggers, mosquitoes, I just had it. So I try to go and it's more the off season, if you will. I do a lot of research in these months because there's not many events and, you're not your spring break with my daughter or whatever. So I find those are better. So it doesn't affect me unless it's super cold or, I mean, I'll die if it's like 30 degrees and I'm trying to camp or something.
Right. No,
dude,
totally.
you guys, y'all didn't get to see a lot of the presentations. Kevin, the guy that was with Chad Lewis, that was set up his table with Chad.
Yeah.
Chad's a good guy, and when he was doing his presentation, they were talking about it was 30 below where they were. I can't remember exactly where they were at, and Kevin was out sleeping in a hammock, and I was like, "What?" Like,
those guys are from Wisconsin. They're a different species of people. Kevin's got the giant ZZ top beard. He just covers up with a beard. He's good to go. But dude, Blackburn up there and 30 below, I'd be the Minnesota Iceman. He'd be having me on display in Austin.
Yep, I get you. When we, Brandy and I are from Missouri. Let's talk about Momo. I know you wrote the book. You did the Small Town Monsters.
Right.
What got you? What piqued your interest about the Momo?
I had originally read about that in a Edward Ballman's book, Monsters of North America. It's an older book. It actually talked about Legend of Boggy Creek, Honey Island Swamp Monster. I love those stories because they're essentially Bigfoot stories, but they have personality, just like Boggy Creek. It's just, it's got the attacks and other stuff. Momo as well. Momo is a strange story that happened right around the time the Legend of Boggy Creek. If it first made the newspaper in July of 1972, when three siblings saw this big, hairy, upright creature standing in their backyard. They lived up in the small town of Louisiana, Missouri, right on the far eastern border, right on the Mississippi River. And there's this landmark called Marzoff Hill, a forested hill up there, and they saw this creature that made the newspapers, which then elicited this flurry of other people hearing strange stuff and having sightings. And then that included weirder stuff, orbs, and a few people saw strange crafts in the sky. And just the sheriff organized a posse within that first month and went up on Marzoff Hill to get to the bottom of this and see if they could find this creature that everybody had been seeing. That was called, that the papers called Momo, which was short for the abbreviation of Missouri, MO, and monster. So Momo, even though it sounded a little cuddly, was actually this very ominous Bigfoot-like creature that stood 7 foot tall, had hair that covered its face, and on the first and other occasions, it was seen holding what they believed was a dead dog, and it was bloody. So this thing was pretty spooky. And I went up and went to that little town and interviewed people and fielded all the newspaper reports and all that whole thing. And a very interesting and fun sort of flap of Bigfoot sightings that has resulted in, essentially, if you see a Bigfoot in Missouri, it's sort of, you just call it a Momo. I saw a Momo. It just kind of entered the vernacular of, like you saw the Boggy Creek monster. Well, you could, those woods are contiguous with Texas. It's just sort of where you see it gives it some personality. So the Momo case was one that I was fascinated about. And again, sort of like Boggy Creek, I wanted to learn more about it and really kind of encompass not only the sightings and the history of that, but all this stuff that happened in the little town. Because there for a minute, all the restaurants had Momo burgers. And if you look in the newspaper from back then, it's crazy. There's big kooky drawings of monsters, like monster sale at JCPenney's, and there's a Momo drawn onto it, which I thought was, this is like affecting the culture of this small town because people are reporting essentially a cryptid. So I ended up writing the book that it kind of just encompassed the whole history of that, and something that you find in other cryptid books. There would be 2 or 3 sentences or paragraphs about Momo, but there was never really anything that you could sit down and delve into the entire thing, which like I said, was very bizarre. If you include the orbs, and there were banging metallic noises in the woods and disembodied voices. I mean, you just got it all.
Yeah, there's a lot of weirdness up there, and I told you backstage that I'm only about an hour from that area,
Right.
So that's pretty much in my backyard.
You guys could start the Momo Mart. See, like you got Monster Mart in Fouts.
The Momo Mart. We could,
Randy.
We could start it right down here in the Mark Twain Forest.
There you go.
Yeah, we can do the Momo Mart.
You need a central location, because like I told y'all backstage, is no one in that town really has latched onto that. There's no Momo festival or anything. And when I went into the library, which is when I go to these towns, I think, okay, well, I've got some allies here. Not only do they probably have the archives to these old newspaper reports, but there's the library where they're all about books. When I tell them I'm going to write a book about Momo, they're going to be excited. Not here. They were like, they're just kind of looking at me like, why would you do this? I'm like, this is an interesting story. And they just kind of, they just didn't seem to be bothered that I was writing a book. And I wrote, and or maybe they didn't believe it. But when I was done with the book, I sent a copy up there and some posters. And I never heard back. I mean, but.
Wow. Never heard back.
That was the reception. But,
hey, what was the first sighting of Momo? Do you know, Lyle, off the top of your head?
Yes, that would have been the year prior. So July, it was July, I want to say 11th, 1972, when it made the newspapers, when those kids saw it. 1 year prior to that, around the same month, July 1971, was the first sighting, which wasn't made public till after, because these ladies didn't report it. You know, they didn't know what to do. They were driving through town, and I've driven this route, and I even found the exact place where they stopped. But it's sort of a scenic overlook. They're close to the Mississippi River, right over this town, and it's wooded now, but it was very wooded back then. They pull off. They're having a picnic lunch as they're on their road trip. They're eating their sandwiches, and all of a sudden this hairy, smelly thing walks out of the woods on two legs, and they were just completely freaked out. I mean, it's 1971. They didn't know what Bigfoot was or anything like that. So they ended up running and getting in their car, and locking the doors. But unfortunately, they didn't have the keys because it was in the purse of the lady it was at the picnic table. So this thing came over and was looking in the car and looking at them, and they're screaming and freaking out. And eventually, it just sort of, it started honking the horn, and it went back, grabbed their food, and like they said, it like ate one of their sandwiches and ran off into the woods. And so that was the first. So July 1971, and then sort of silence. And then a year later, boom, kids see it. And then there was this huge outbreak.
Because I remember when I was a kid, I think I only read like really one book about monsters that I can remember. And it was Daniel Cohen. And he wrote a book. I think it was just called Monsters or something. It was like a blue book or something. Yep. And it had the Momo story in there. And I thought, what a weird name. And then he talked about Goatman in Maryland and a few other things, which was intriguing. But, it didn't hold my interest until what happened to me when I was 15. Then it, became whatever. But you have done a lot, like you were on our show and you talked about the weirdest encounter that you were ever given. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I've been asked that a few times, and I try to think, what is the weirdest? Was that the like triangular predator thing that went across?
No. Well, that's a good one. But I was going to say, for the ladies' show here, you there was one that somebody said they saw the devil. That one was pretty trippy.
Oh, that. Yes.
Yeah.
That was.
So it'd come up between that and then the predator one. For Ken, it was a giant playing card thing. And I'm not joking. For real, Ken told us this story. Yeah. We were all comparing like weird stuff. And I've gotten a lot of really weird stories, but I think some of it ties into, because I do a lot of paranormal too, which is, I think it's all paranormal, but by my definition, but ghost type stuff too. But it's weird. I think it kind of ties in. And it's like, people have these attachments and things that happen. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about the weirdest encounters, and David had some really weird ones. And of course, Barton had some weird ones, but Lyle, you had one that was really off the chain. Maybe you could tell that one, or the predator one, the one that you were talking about.
Yeah. The one where the people thought they saw the devil. I was doing a presentation at Fort Worth. I believe I was doing it either on Boggy Creek or Lake Worth Monster, and a woman was there, and she came up and proceeded to tell me this really strange thing that happened when they were at a park one night in Fort Worth, and they were approached by, they were just leaving the park driving in a car. It was her, and I don't remember if it was her boyfriend or simply a friend, but this individual just kind of emerged out of the dark and came up, and they said he was wearing the most bizarre clothing. Like the clothing itself looked strange to them for whatever reason. He was sort of walked with a cane, and he looked older, and was talking to him, and they got just a real creepy vibe. And it's been a minute since I thought about this encounter, but they were just really shaken up, and they said his face just didn't look quite right. Like it was not a mask, but they just felt like it just wasn't moving right. The whole ambiance of this person was very strange, and it was, it was he or whatever was trying to get them to stop and talk, and they ended up driving off, and this person just kind of disappeared into the park. And then when they got home, all of a sudden all the electricity was going off in the house, all these bizarre incidents that were happening after the fact. And their assessment of it, or the lady told it far more spooky than I could ever even tell it, because I mean, she was the person there. But essentially that she felt like they had encountered the devil, and her and both the person in the car were in agreement, and they had sort of carried this bad juju or whatever to the home, and it eventually went away. But that, I guess, essentially somebody told me they encountered the devil.
Wow, that's scary.
So pretty spooky.
Yeah.
I wish I could. This was so far back. I mean, I wish that I would have been able to videotape the woman, because this was so bizarre and so out of the ordinary from ubiquitous Bigfoot encounters or whatever. I really wish that I mean, I guess I had an iPhone at the time. I'm not sure if I did or not. I even had video, but I wish I would have videoed the woman telling the story, but I didn't. So
have you
I
had
don't know.
any?
That sounds scary to me, for sure, especially because she doesn't even know what she was encountering at the time. She just was assuming it was the devil, but if it scared her that bad, I would call it the devil too, I suppose.
Right. They felt that it was a non-human entity of some sort disguised as a human, and the speculation that was the devil obviously was speculation, but it was interesting that when she told it, I was like, yeah, it very much almost like something out of a movie. And she was a very just an average, believable, truthful lady. I mean, I felt that what she told me was true.
Have you yourself encountered paranormal?
Yes.
I've heard Josh talk about it on his show. So just for those that may not know.
Right. Yes. I was always interested in all paranormal when I read the Strange but True book. I love ghosts, and originally I used to go and do some like primitive ghost research back in high school. One of my best friends who played in a band with me lived in a home not far from where I lived, claimed that they had a ghost of a little boy that lived in the home. He had seen it, his parents had seen it, and several of our friends claimed that they had seen it. Well, this guy's parents were very straight-laced, extremely, just no nonsense. They claimed they had seen it. I didn't have the investigative mind at the time to go and interview or talk or do much. I just was aware of it. And I was sitting there one evening, maybe 10 or 10:30 p.m. We were going to go out to a club, and I was sitting on the fireplace watching TV to my left, and in front of me was the entry door and sort of an entry hallway that went across to bedrooms. And all of a sudden, something catches my eye, and I look up and I see what essentially almost what you think a ghost would look like. It was a whitish figure, the height of a kid, walk right across there and walk down that hallway, walk into the hallway for just a period of time. And I saw it. Like, it wasn't like I sort of saw it. It was, I turned and I looked right at it. And I was like, Tim, I just saw the ghost. He was very nonchalant about it and was like, oh yeah, that's exactly where it is, because he supposedly died in the bedroom down the hall, or whatever the story was. I don't know where he got that story. I think it was just something they came up with to try to explain the sightings of what looked like a boy. I didn't see clothing on the figure. It was very whitish, but it was 100% the outline of a person, and walked. And so that was, I mean, that's the best paranormal sighting I've ever had. And then I currently live in a home that has a bizarre back history. It's a newer home, and Josh was there. We were talking about earlier, when I was moving, I was about to move into this home, and I've had some bizarre things happen here. The owner of this house died of questionable circumstances and died in the home. He was a younger guy. And so, of course, I theorized that the home is haunted by his spirit, and several things have happened since I've lived here over the last more than a year. So that's kind of a bonus to a house, in my opinion. It's a nice house, and it also has a ghost. So a win-win.
That's interesting. Do you feel anything, like on a more negative type side, or is it just like?
No, just thing like pictures have just. I was in the kitchen, and a lid off of a drink thing flew across the room, and I saw that with another witness who was sitting, and literally, so it wasn't just me. We saw that. It's a little creepy sometimes. I'm not really afraid of any of this, and I don't worry. But I never feel like a negative vibe. I really feel like everything that's happened is just, hey, I'm here, but not trying to do anything bad or good. Just simply some strange stuff goes on. And I only once thought I saw something, but I have not seen enough to say, I saw a figure or any of that. But kind of once think I did. My daughter, who is 11 now, she has experienced a couple of things and seen and heard things as well. So she's kind of backed me up on that. But so far so good as far as the spirit.
And then you had the washer and dryer. I remember you were telling me that it bounced around or turned backwards or something.
Yeah, which it hasn't done it again, but once it was just turned all the way, like it turned around. Now I know they can be off balance, but I put it back, not ever again.
Wow.
So I don't know if that's paranormal, but it was sure weird when I opened that up and the thing was turned completely, not all the way 180, but just that was significant. It was weird.
Yeah, I could see him being off balance and kind of shaking a little bit, but good Lord, that's
I mean, I
to do 360 there.
Yeah, I've had them like shake out of the spot, but that basically they're just moving forward and slightly tilt, but I've never, not once, had it turn all the way around.
Yeah. I don't know why ghosts want to do that, because there was one that I covered, and I don't want to say the name of the area, but it was right outside of my hometown, and the people that lived out there, they had a little farm, and she was like, yeah, my son is seeing this werewolf looking creature, and they had a footprint in the mud and they said, if you come, you can see it, so we all went out there. There were 4 of us in the house at that time, and 2 were still outside. When we walked in, the ninja, those ninja blenders, that thing just went and the lid flew up in the air. And why is that? And then the dryer, not the washing machine, the dryer kind of went ba-boom, 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 and came out of its spot. I mean, it was instantaneous. It was 4 people of us and like 4 of them. And we're all standing there. And I'm like, okay, is there something you want to tell me? Because this is poltergeist activity, And she was like, well, the house is haunted. And I said, okay, well, and then your kid's seeing this werewolf looking creature, but they were seeing it all over the property. It was such a bizarre thing. That story was weird because the child was talking about this shadow man, the Hat Man, really is what it was. And he was seeing it. His dad saw the Hat Man, his mother saw the Hat Man, and then his little sister saw the Hat Man. They all saw it, but the dad was in absolute denial. So when I asked him about the blender and the dryer, he was like, oh, it's just off balance. I'm like, dude, I was like, that's really, really off balance. Like, that's very, very off balance. And then the child was seeing this shadow man. So this wolf-like creature was telling him to come outside to play and that he would protect him from the shadow man. But even when they took the kid out of the house and she took the kid, she was tired of it and she went to go stay at her mother's. The shadow man continued to plague him, and that werewolf thing, whatever it was, ended up like going after the guy that was there by himself on Christmas Eve. It was a really crazy thing. But I warned them. I said, you need to get the heck out of this place. I mean, it's not fun and games, whatever, because a lot of times these things are connected. They're there together. Now, Lyle, knowing how you are, knowing how you believe and how you think, and you're very open. You're very open, but you also you have like a taste for the macabre. Like that's kind of your thing. Like you Ghoul Town and everything else. And we were listening to monster type music or whatever when we were in a lot of yours is too. And actually, the music that we're producing now is sort of inspired by that type of genre. But I was going to ask you a question, and you and I have talked about the paranormal extensively and different weird things, and a lot of the same people I do, yada, yada, yada. How do you feel about Bigfoot oftentimes being associated with haunting? Like people will see a Bigfoot on their property and their house will also be haunted. For you, what does that mean? Is it just a coincidence?
Well, I mean, oftentimes different aspects of the paranormal can coexist. I mean, whether they're connected in any way is the question. I mean, there's somebody sees a UFO, somebody reports a Bigfoot, somebody reports ghostly activity, they report a Bigfoot. Are they connected? There's no way to know. But it's certain that, like in the Momo case, there's weird orbs. They see all this weird stuff. Did it have anything to do with the creature? Impossible to say, but yes, I mean, I don't have an answer or even a theory as to explain why, if somebody has haunting in their house, and they're also seeing Bigfoot. I mean, it depends. Are they in the woods? Is this a very wooded area where you would normally see Bigfoot? And they, what's the circumstances of the home? I think if all those things line up, yeah. But oh, man, it just gets confusing. It's hard enough to explain one, a cryptid much, and now we're looking at the ghosts. I don't know. You
being a Bigfoot expert, and now that you live in a haunted house, you're a haunted house expert. So I just thought I would ask, since you,
and I love all those things. I mean, because that's, like I said, it's a bonus. Like, wow, I got a haunted house. This is perfect for me. It's like, wow.
You lucked out. Right. It's not like the ones that me and Barton have lived in, because those are the kind where Barton was saying you don't want to take a shower because something weird.
Hey,
you lucked out on that one.
I just want the haunting and not the evil spirit exorcism going on. That's stuff for you guys to handle.
Yeah, that's for us. That's for us to deal with. Yeah,
that's what Barton. That's why Barton has a sword. But I love all these things. So the more the merrier in these cases. I mean, it's all fascinating to me, all of it, even if I'm an expert. I mean, I dedicate my time to knowing and researching cryptids, but I love all the other stuff too. And if someone tells those stories, I'm engaged with it
Right.
as well. So it's all good.
Well, if we get the action figure line back up, if we decide to pick it back up or do whatever, we'll put a little ghost character next to your dude. That'll be your little pet, little ghost guy. Whatever.
Ghosts are going to go hunting for dog men and Bigfoots.
Yeah. You know, it's funny though. Like our friend Ken, he's had some weird stuff happen too, on a couple of different occasions. He doesn't advertise it or whatever, but it's happened.
Yeah.
You know, and like when David Weatherly came to my house, we were having all that trouble was going on in my house. He came into this one room and he was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like he could feel it. It was very heavy. Yeah. I mean, you can feel it. It's palpable. I believe we've done a good job of cleansing it and getting rid of it. I mean, I'm a follower of Christ, and we did what we had to do. We got rid of it. And I believe that as long as you're anchored, and I don't know what it is about this, but I do. This is a very powerful symbol, and I've used that Saint Benedict many times. I know a friend of mine that goes out looking for stuff. He's been on my show a couple times, Nick Valenti. And he's very much into, well, it's a flesh and blood thing, but he still uses holy water and salt. And, he brings all those other accoutrements because you never know what might happen. It's been known to, the show I did just recently, I don't know what we called it. It was, I think it was Vampire Attacks of Belarus. Mm-hmm. And Alexa, the guy that gave me this story, his dad's name was Mikhail. And then next Tuesday, folks, is going to be the werewolf story that his grandfather had. Those people, it was just like common knowledge. I mean, he was leaving the farm that night, and Alexa said his dad, 87 years old, he's still pretty lucid. He wasn't like, he could talk, and just a language barrier. And Alex had translated for us. But when his friend threw that thing into that creature's mouth and it came out the bottom of its chin or whatever, it melted through like it was poison to it. It was silver. It was a crucifix. And Alexa was like, do you think it was the silver or the cross? I said, it could have been either one. It could have been both. We don't know. We don't know enough about these creatures. I just know that, a lot of times people don't say, hey, I saw a vampire. They just say, I saw a flying humanoid that looked like something from, Salem's Lot or something, whatever. And this guy, he said, no, my dad encountered a vampire on the road from Orsha to Dubrovna. And it was when I talked to he was very adamant that, yes, this thing, because of the other things that had gone on around them, but they weren't believers. They didn't believe in any of this. And when the farmer tried to give him that cross, he tried to give it back. I mean, imagine what would have happened if he wouldn't have done that. And I mean, this is an 87-year-old guy. He's not in great health. He, like you guys were saying, he has no reason to lie. What he says happened. Now, Sava, his friend, was the one that actually, he was knocked unconscious, but Sava's the one that did that. So Sava could have been, possibly exaggerating. But the fact of the matter is there was a creature and it was gone when he woke up. So weird stuff. But I know that with you, Lyle, like all the stuff that you've covered in your research and all that, and that's not the weird, like that's a weird story, like the devil one or whatever. I've heard it a couple times. But you also had one that I was going to say, you could close it out with this one, maybe the predator one, the one that you were talking about.
Yeah, that was a strange one. And, they kind of stand out. I mean, obviously we get a lot of reports that are repeat cryptids, Bigfoot and whatever. This is the only time I've got this. And it was really strange. These people were hiking. I want to say it was upstate New York. I forget the location offhand, but it was up there somewhere. And they said, we don't know how to describe it. And a lot of times people send you the report and saying, have you ever heard anybody else report this? Because it's so weird. Mm-hmm. They're trying to find it. Has anybody ever seen something? But they said they were hiking down this path, and all of a sudden they see a triangular shape come out of the trees on one side, and it was in the path, and it meandered there and then went on across into the trees. And they described it. They're like, I don't know how to describe it, as sort of like the Predator, that effect in the movie where it shimmers, like you can kind of see it was like bending the light. But it wasn't a humanoid shape. They said it was triangular, and it moved across the path right in front of them, and disappeared into the woods. And it was distorted. It was visible but not visible, see-through but not see-through, and it just went on across. And of course, I'm thinking, well, that doesn't sound like any sort of creature to me. Doesn't sound like a ghost. Is this some sort of an Earth anomaly, a magnetic field? I mean, dare say a portal or something? I mean, this seemed like, and it was a geometric shape, which was interesting. It wasn't a blob. It wasn't. I said, I don't have anything to tell you about this as far as what you saw, other than people have seen weird things, but I don't have any other report of a triangle, a shimmering triangle that actually moved from one point to another. So that was one for the strange books of the strange.
I apologize to everybody for blacking out. I finally went to the doctor today and got on some cough medicine, and it is breaking this stuff up. Decides to do it right now. So I'm sorry.
Yeah. And after the big cell phone internet blackout of
2020
century,
the
I
big
can't even stay on.
Yeah. I'm like, I can't believe that this is, out of all the
Yeah.
times.
We're having a great night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was telling the ladies backstage earlier, Lyle, that you might have been. I guess you were there. They people were messaging me on Facebook from their computer. They're like, "I'm on my computer. I can't message you through the phone." And I'm like, "Relax. You're still alive." That's like, if need be, we will hunt the wild animals of the earth with bows and arrows. I'll figure it out. I've only shot a bow one time when I was a kid, and I got in trouble.
Do you have Wi-Fi? That probably should still work.
Yeah.
That's how the alien race is going to get us. They're going to come down and they're just going to zap all the phones, and people are going to be like, everybody goes nuts because we don't have any internet access or phones. There's just chaos.
Yeah, it's over. Yeah,
Right.
Lyle and I were joking about the zombie apocalypse one time. We were joking about it, and it was like, it's going to be very easy. They're just going to knock out the phones, and everybody's going to freak out. Like, and I know one time, Lyle, you were on the phone with me and Barton, and we were laughing and joking, and it came up about when we were kids. I mean, you guys are a few years older than me, but same thing applies. I mean, it was like, the world didn't stop. We didn't have cell phones when we went out to play. I mean, your mom and dad didn't have a leash on you to know exactly where you were at. They cared, that you were out running around, whatever, but it was like you were on your bike and you rode around, and, they didn't have a way to call you or get a hold of you. You didn't have a way to call or get a hold of them unless you were at a friend's house. And, it was like, how did we survive? Oh my gosh, what did we do? Before we had a remote control, you had to actually get up and turn the TV channel. Oh boy.
We had that discussion.
The dark ages, man. It was
a dark time.
Yeah. I mean, a certain level of acceptance of your parents. Like nowadays, you're hesitant to let your kids just go off and not come back for 8 hours. Like back then, that's just what he thought.
That's the way it was.
Right.
So
yeah, and I remember Lyle talking about getting lost in the woods, and then one time your dad had to carry you, whatever. I mean, your dad was nice, because my dad would have whooped me until I learned to walk better. It would have been like, or just left me there.
Well, my dad would drag us out to the deer lease, and he had didn't have a compass. Of course, we didn't have a cell phone, no GPS, no nothing. And he would just trail off chasing. They'd shoot a deer with an arrow, and it didn't quite drop it, and it get dark, and we're out there in the middle of the woods trying to track down the blood. I'm like, no one knows anywhere where we are. My dad doesn't even know where we are. I'm 5 years old. I'm scared to death. it was, man, it was crazy.
Yeah. And seeing back then, can you imagine now though, the dependence we have on these devices? It's like, we're lost. We took a left by the Circle K. I don't know what we're going to do. We may not make it. There's a Walgreens. Let's go get help. No, dude, it's ridiculous. People are ridiculous. They act like it's, like, what did we do before GPS? Like, you found things. That's how you did it. You pulled out a map. I remember going down to the coast, and I just said, I think it's Highway 37. Okay, there it is. And I just got on there, and there it is. And I took off. And, I mean, it was already like early 2000s, and my friends were like, well, there's other ways. Yeah, there are. But this is how we did it for thousands of years. I think we'll be okay. And I always had a map in the glove compartment because you never know. This device that solves all the mysteries of the universe could go down. And then what are we going to do?
Got to know how to use a map and a real compass because, they'd be in.
Exactly. Okay, well, everybody, it's time to wrap up the show. We've got to let Lyle go. He's already worked a really super long day and stayed with us for 2 hours. It's time to let him go to sleep, I suppose.
Well, you did tell her. He gets up at 3 o'clock.
Can't pull an all-nighter.
I started at 3 a.m. and I worked till 5, finishing. I finished a book I was working on, and that's how I am, like a dog that latches on. And then I took a little break, and then I'm like ready to talk creatures. So
there you go.
Well, we thank you for coming on with us, though.
Absolutely,
definitely.
Yeah, and we'll look into that November. We'll see what Ken says about that, and see, because that I was really kicking that idea around about doing it, because October is going to be so busy for everybody, and I'm sure I'm going to be on other people's shows and doing whatever.
Yeah.
Because
because that's the thing. It's like I'm already booked so far in advance. So especially in October. So, but the farther you work ahead, but just keep me in the loop, man. And I'll definitely, if I'm free, I'm in.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. I mean, and hopefully, we'll get it figured out soon. There's been so much going on. I'm trying to finish a book too. So we're all just, and then there's the board game and all this other stuff that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So
I hear it, bro.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. But
once again, I apologize to everybody for my coughing fit.
I didn't know you were having a coughing fit.
I watched her. She started going like this, and then she's blackout. She go like this, blackout.
All day. I took my medicine this morning, twice a day, right? And then all day long, and then during the show, it decides to finally rear its ugly head. Go figure.
Well, I hope you feel better and get that taken care of.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Want to make sure that we thank everybody. DJ Tyler Radio, Jason, DJ Tyler Radio again, Paranormal Among Us, Paul, DJ Tyler Radio again, Letitia Nunnelly, Bigfoot Michigan Rob, DJ Tyler Radio again, Larry Fisher, and Holly M. Thank you all very much. We definitely appreciate each and every one of you.
And I want to plug Bigfoot Michigan Rob real quick. Guy's great, dude. He does a great job. If you haven't been on his show, Lyle, you got to check it out. He'll be a guest on his show. He's a good guy. Mm-hmm. He just hit 3,500 today, I believe. And he's got a great book. I just got into it. It's so hard to read everybody's book. And here's a funny thing, because Lyle's on the show, and I was reading. I've already read it before, but I was going back and I was reading the one about the reptilian, the swamp, the lizard man.
Mm-hmm. So
I was going back and reading it for reference because Ken told me a lie, and so I should have known better. And him and Ryan Edwards, they were like, yeah, that's what it was. And I was like, okay. And so I said, I was thinking that's not what it was. So I went back and I was rereading it, and I set it down, and I picked up Rob's book, and I started reading a good book. It's actually really good. I'm about halfway through it right now, but that's funny because they were both right there together.
Yeah, I saw his book, and it's on my list to grab, and definitely for sure.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, yeah, that one. It's a good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely good. Same thing happened to me with Josh Cutchins and Josh Ninocchio. Their books were right there together, and I was reading Cutchins' book, and I set it down on Josh's book, and talking to Josh Ninocchio the other day, and he's like, have you read my book? And I was like, Yeah, and I picked it up and I started flipping through Josh Cutchins. And I was like, oh, wait, that is not. I will get to it.
That's not
because
it.
he's got so much material on the show. He's got like 1 billion subscribers, huge. So, I mean, like, what does he need a book for? I mean, like, he's got a zillion people. But so when he was at the conference, he was just like giving his books away.
Wow.
And I was like, and Nick does that. Nick will like tell people, I'll give you 3 of them for a nickel. And you're like, dude, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, it's no big deal. And I'm like, yeah, but other people are trying to sell their books. It's not trying to, that's, some people, that's how they make their money, And I told Nick, I said, why are you selling your books, 3 of them for $1? I mean, it's like, come on, you're Nick Redfern.
Right.
But, let's hope everything works out for Redfern. His dad is sick and he's not doing good. And Nick is in England. So everybody lift up prayers for him or whatever. He's no longer Lyle's neighbor. Doesn't live there. It's kind of weird to think about.
It is weird.
Does he have plans to come back to the States or?
He told me he wasn't. So
Wow.
from what he told me and Ken, I think he told you that too, Lyle, that he's not.
Wow.
So I kind of said my goodbyes and we had a good hour-long conversation, me and him, and we joked and laughed and hopefully he'll return. But he said he's probably not going to. We're actually in the middle of a project and it's just going to sit unfinished, I guess, until maybe one day, who knows?
Wow. That's unfortunate. He's a really nice guy.
Yeah. And Lyle, if you want to get into UFOs or something, let me know so we can finish the book.
Right.
Just something else to put on the plate.
Into the next field. We'll talk about that. But okay.
Yeah.
All right, Lyle, it's good seeing you again, man. I do need to talk to you off air briefly if you got a minute. But if you don't, then we'll talk on the phone. But I need to talk to you about something.
All right. Yeah, just holler at me. I'm pretty spent.
Yeah, you look wiped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He does.
I'm tired still too, man. I got 4 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
But thanks for being on.
Yes. Thank you, Lyle.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We'll talk soon.
Yep. And I'm sure we'll see you at the next Dogman conference if it's in November.
Yeah. I look forward.
And everybody out there, we'll see you tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central. Same place.
New time. Same place, new time.
Same place, new time. Yes.
My time will be 8:30, so around there,
Yeah.
Whenever you guys are finishing up, I'll start about that time. So.
Yep.
All right. Sounds
that's
great.
where we moved our time up because so everybody could watch everybody, right?
That's right.
7 is a much better time slot, though. I've really found that 7 o'clock. If you're hitting at 7 o'clock Central, but I mean, except for the people on the West Coast, but I mean, they're used to everything being early for them.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And actually, we did it the first time last Friday, and it was actually kind of nice. I'm like, wow, it's only 8:30.
It's 8:30 and we're done.
Yeah. So
it's like, okay, now what? Bedtime.
Yeah.
Then we
William
turn on
Bias had a
YouTube and then we
question
sit.
there.
Yeah, because what happens is after we're done.
Oh no, I'm reading it from he says, Lyle, what's it like to be one of the biggest celebrities in the cryptid field? I have a funny story I can tell you about Lyle. He's off now, but before we go,
Okay.
Somebody was like messing with him, and one of the people are nasty, mean. They say they're stupid, And somebody in one of the groups we were in said something about Lyle. And they're like, I didn't even know who you were. Who do you think, whatever. And I'm sitting there going like, yeah, right, dude. You've been in the cryptid thing. You don't know who he is. So you stop acting.
Right.
So Lyle's polite. He didn't really say much back. Of course, me, I'm not. And so I said something to that person like, why don't you go and stick your head in a bucket and hold your breath? Whatever. I don't know, whatever. I gave him some advice. And the person started getting snarky back with me, like it's gonna hurt my feelings. Like they went and looked at my Facebook and they're like, "You're chubby, you're this and you're that." I'm like, I don't give a crap what you have to say. But we were talking and Lyle was laughing about it later. And he's like, dude, I was sitting at the Waffle House and people had come in and they were sitting next to me. And he goes, and they recognized me and asked for my autograph, And I'm like, yeah, when was the last time old Bozo that was talking trash on Facebook was sitting at a IHOP or a Waffle House and somebody came in and recognized him and said, oh, I recognize you from TV. Let me have your autograph, And he was, and Lyle just said, he goes, it's one word, jealousy. And it's as simple as that because people don't want to do the work. They don't want to put in the work. These guys like Barton, and Ken and Lyle and David Weatherly, some of my best friends in this field, Linda Godfrey, who's now deceased, rest her soul, God rest her soul. And also guys like Garetano who do really amazing work, filmmakers. Eric Palacio is another filmmaker, and of course, guys that have huge channels, real channels like Josh Finocchio. You know, people are so jealous of them, and they attack them, and people have no idea. They really do not have any idea how much these people put up with. It's just when it comes to me, and I have a zero, crap tolerance, and so I just don't take it. And a lot of the same people that will attack me will attack them and have attacked them. And it goes on and on and on. But I have now kind of become like, I don't know what you call it, like the lightning rod for that, because I defend my friends and I defend this field and the family that we all are. And so it's become kind of like my role. And so people are like, you're always doing this. Yeah, because I stick up for people. Right. I got into a war with Marvin Allen and Bettina and them 2 years ago because I was sticking up for someone, or at least I thought I was. And then this war was because I was sticking up for Bettina and Abe. And they were once not my friends, but they are now. And we're very close, all of us. And I would do it all over again. I've made peace with AI. We're at peace. I don't have a problem with them. I think that they're just as weary and tired of this crap as everybody else. But the thing is, some people are going to keep it going, and they're never going to stop. And Lyle had given me that advice when we were coming back from the first conference, and he had told me, he says, you're going to have people that are going to hate you for no reason, whether it's you're writing a book or if you're doing a podcast. They're going to be jealous. They're going to say mean, nasty things, and you just got to just let it roll, whatever. But then it comes to a point where it's like, enough is enough, and it gets ridiculous. And I give the advice right now to anyone out there who's an aspiring podcaster or an author. I'm both. And if you want to do this, I don't have a lot of books written. I have 2, but I'll probably have at least 2 or 3 more by the end of the year. And I'll say this: I've been relatively successful as a podcaster and as a YouTuber. It takes a lot of work. It's a lot of hard work, and a lot of you ladies are doing a lot of work, and your numbers on the subs are going up, but not as fast and as they should be. They're not growing. So if you're out there and you're listening from Paranormal Roundtable, and you haven't subscribed to these ladies, shame on you. You got to do it because they're part of the paranormal family that I'm in, and we're all friends here in this community, and they represent a very, very, very good, wholesome form of entertainment. And I like these ladies a lot. So it'd be a personal favor to me if you'd go out and you'd subscribe, and also subscribe to Lyle's channel, Monstro Bizarro. Pick up one of his books or one of his shirts, and try his hot sauce. His hot sauce is good. It's not a gimmick. It's not a gimmick. It's actually really good. I ate some yesterday. I ate a little too much, actually. But yeah, but it's really good. You get breakfast tacos. It's amazing. And he's got 3 different ones. And everything he does, he puts a lot of thought into. He was my partner going into the action figure thing until the little weasel did what he did. But that's how it goes, I mean, we just whatever. It didn't work out. We'll try again with something. But the thing is, there are good people out there that work really hard. And if you want to be one of the people that's known, you need to work really, really hard. It's no half-assing. And if you're only doing it part-time, you're taking only part-time of your life to do this, because I feel like that's what I'm doing. I'm still able to do what I'm doing it part-time. But I just sleep less.
Right.
So people be jealous all they want, but you ladies work. You have to get up and go to work, and so do I.
Yeah. Yeah, we both.
You're at every conference. You're at every. I can't even know how you do that. It's like crazy.
Yeah.
So
I'm fortunate. I have a job where I have plenty of PTO.
Yeah.
So that definitely works out. And thank you for the kind words, because
thank you.
Honestly, without you and the PRT family, we wouldn't be where we are today. So thank you very much. You and Bart and BMR and Tex have really, really helped us a lot.
Yeah.
And I owe a lot to the guys that helped me out in this field, guys that were there for me. Lyle was one of them. Lyle's given me a lot of advice and talking to me. And he encouraged me to not stop doing the podcast. He says, if you can manage, and this was his words, he said, if you can manage to do the podcast and write the books, he said, I would encourage you to do that. I think that's what you should do.
Yeah.
So I did.
He's
I
right.
decided to stay in there. And I've thought about getting out of this a few times. That's just a couple of weeks ago. I started thinking, I'm really tired of it. You know,
You can't, Josh.
No. It's in your blood. It's not going anywhere.
Well, I hope that I can stay in there, but I've noticed lately, like we've, on Friday, we've gotten a little less on the numbers. And then on Sunday, the numbers are they're pretty good, but, I don't know. It's just been a little bit of a grind, and we're putting out a lot of content, and it doesn't seem like it's appreciated. And I'll say this. Somebody said a really nasty comment on the I don't usually care about the comment. I don't give a crap. I don't look at them, but on the vampire show, and they were talking about us talking about the Patreon and like how they had some kind of problem with that. And I was like, wait a minute, dude. And a bunch of people liked that comment. And I said, that's ridiculous, because we don't put our stuff behind a paywall. We don't do it. We don't ask people for donations or anything like that. And we do an incredible amount of work, and it's free. It's free. And now I will say this, the guy that I first worked with when I first got into this field, he told me to be careful not to do too many shows a week because the audience will get spoiled. He goes, and then they become unappreciative. And he's like, I've seen it happen. And although I don't agree with his philosophies about a lot of things, I don't agree with how he does things, he was right about that. And there seems to be a lack, to me, of appreciation, not from the hardcore paratroopers, but I think it's more of like some of the fringe people on the outs. They'll watch every now and then, and they don't want to hear nothing, and they don't want you. They don't want to help out with anything, financially, anything. And you're supposed to be able to do this,
right?
And I think they absolutely ignore what we go through to produce these shows.
Right?
They have no clue what it takes to do these. No,
it's literally a second full-time job for me.
It is. And I have now 3 full-time jobs.
Yeah.
And today I was getting my butt kicked by 2 of them, not this, but, and I was just about to pull my hair out, and I was so aggravated that I got about 30 minutes of sleep before I came in, and it made all the difference. I felt fine. I took a really cold shower. I always do. And I'm here, and I'm glad that we're here. I'm glad to be doing Thursdays with you guys.
Yeah,
I could have just said, you know what, I can't make it tonight, and phoned it in, but with Lyle on the docket and everything else, I said, no, I got to get this done. I need to get it done.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to this show with Lyle. I really like him. I've been I guess you could say a fan of his for years. So,
right.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then, meeting him at the Dogman conference and stuff, it was just really cool. And then, like here at the Texas conference we just came back from, it was like, hey, we're old friends now. We remembered each other. So it was all good.
Did you guys get his books?
I did at the Dogman conference, yes.
Yeah. Because I was going to say, when you ladies were here, I have all of his books autographed. I have all of Ken's and Barton's and David Weatherly's and everything.
Yeah.
But we'll see you when you guys come back.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Texas,
for sure we'll be back.
Sure. And are you guys going to the meet and greet in April in the LBL?
I don't know anything about the meet and greet.
I'm not going. I'm going to Falk to the conference in yeah. So I'll be in Falk that weekend, unfortunately.
Wow. Well,
who's putting on that meet and greet?
There's a lot of people that have been messaging me about it. I don't know. And I told Barton that tentatively I would try to be there. I don't know who all is going from our little clique, but I mean, if there's a conference in Falk, it's literally on the way. I might just stop. I might just do that and then say, I'm sure Lyle will be there, right? He's probably going to be speaking. Yeah. So, because he's always at the Falk conference, maybe I'll just stop in, say hi, and then keep going.
There you go.
And then
sounds good.
There you go. Yeah, it's I didn't know anything. I kind of did, but I didn't know exactly when it was or who was putting it on. I've just heard, small talk about it. So look into it more. Because, the LBL, honestly, for me, I love Falk, love going down there, but it's 9 hours for me where the LBL's 3. you know, much closer. So
Yeah, mine's 3 or 5. Well.
Yeah, a couple more. So it's closer for you to go to Falk, right, Brandy? Wouldn't it
Well,
be?
no, it's only 2 hours longer for me to go to Falk versus going to the
Where
LBL.
do you
So
stay? You stay. Where do you live?
I live in
State-wise.
Missouri, but I live in the bottom part. I am like 27 miles from Arkansas.
Oh, so it's not okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
that
all
makes
the way
sense.
down at the bottom.
Glenn
And I'm-
Haskins. Hey, Glenn. He says I'll be in Falk too. I may do that. I may stop in. You know,
All right.
I'll be wearing my robe and my crown and my scepter. Like one guy said, and I'll walk in like, "Hey, here I am.
I'm here.
I'm here." Everybody just keeps talking. You know, but in your mind, everybody's dancing around, cheering you on.
Yep.
You know, and then you and it cuts back to everybody just looking at you like you're weird and talking.
Right. That's it. That's
All
it.
right, ladies, I'm gonna get out of here. I love
Yeah.
you guys. All right.
Love you too. Thank you, Josh. We
All right.
appreciate
Love
it.
you too.
All right. Bye.
And we
We'll
will
see you soon.
Yep, for sure. Tomorrow
See you
night.
next Thursday.
Yep. Tomorrow, everybody tune in to we have, I believe, let me look at the calendar.
Oh.
I think I know, but I don't want to not. Yep. We have Dennis Carroll, and we are going to talk about spiritual warfare and folklore.
Oh my goodness, that's going to be a tough one tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Woo!
That'll be at 7
That's a heavy
p.m.
subject.
Yep, it is.
Yeah, that's heavy. So 7 p.m. Central, everybody, don't forget.
Yep.
And next Thursday with Josh, we have Thomas Winterton from Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
I'm really excited about that too. Yeah.
So anyway, we'll see everybody next week.
Yes, we will. And everybody have a good night. And well, actually, we'll see them all tomorrow.
We'll see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.
Good night.